Croc Talk TV podcast. Peace. Welcome to another episode of Croc Talk TV. I am your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back Eric Crocker. And of course, today is Monday, QB Monday, with quarterback guru Greg Panelli from Panelli Passing Academy. What's up, Greg?
What's up, my man? How you doing, Croc?
I'm good, man. Just trying to recover from being on that long-ass road trip. I haven't even taken a shower yet since I got back to Arkansas. Now, I went in there.
I saw you got a workout in, so you're straight from the gym into the podcast room.
I know I'm gonna have to like sanitize this whole room and everything. And my whole family pretty much got COVID, so now I have to actually live out of here for the next week or so. But we'll be all right. That just means more content for everybody. All right. Anyways, so obviously this is the QB Monday episode, and we're gonna get into all things pertaining to the 49ers. Obviously Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, and as we speak, so far, at least the last update I've seen, 49ers are working red zone today. Jimmy Garoppolo had already thrown 2 red zone interceptions. Trey Lance, in his first 3 plays, 3 touchdowns, 2 passes, and 1 running it in. So, we'll get into a little bit of that and much more. Greg here, he has worked a lot with Josh Allen. And obviously, Josh Allen was a comparison for a lot of people, as far as Trey Lance and his skill set. Now, Josh Allen is freaky. I mean, he has one of the biggest arms I've ever seen. He's a huge dude. I mean, Trey Lance is a big dude. Josh Allen's even bigger, and he's still athletic. So I don't want to compare him to that. But they do have a similar skill set for the most part. So we'll get into some of the things that Josh Allen went through early on and kind of how he progressed, things that he needed to improve on, and how he got better at those things. All right, so we'll touch on all that today. And, of course, 49ers quarterback battle. But before we get started, make sure if you're not already, subscribe to this YouTube channel right now. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, all that good stuff. This show is also partnered up with Underdog Fantasy. So if you haven't already, download the Underdog Fantasy app. That's Underdog Fantasy or UnderdogFantasy.com. Promo code Crocky so you can support this show. You deposit a minimum of $10 and I get money off of that. All right. So go sign up right now. Underdog Fantasy. Go make me a little bit of money. Support this show so I can improve my Wi-Fi. All right. So let's get straight into it. I know I'm a comedian. Sometimes when I get tired, I start getting all like delusional and stuff.
There you go.
So let's get straight into it, man. First, I kind of wanted to talk about what's going on with the 49ers. Obviously the quarterback situation, that's what the show is about. And you have Trey Lance and you have Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo, he kind of is what he is, right? And if you had to say like what Jimmy Garoppolo's strengths are, right? Like, and a lot of people, I feel like they point out his weaknesses, but let's talk about his strengths for a minute. What jumps out to you about Jimmy Garoppolo's game where you feel like he excels?
The first thing that jumps out is the efficiency in the quick game and the quick passing game, West Coast offense type of thing that we've seen over the last, 3 to 4 years with Shanahan. I think that Jimmy's ability to get the ball under center or on the shotgun and get the ball out quick, that's something that has helped immensely. I think that especially with guys like Debo, with guys like Ayuk, and Kittle, and getting those guys the ball and letting them do their thing with yards after catch. I mean, those guys are the quick hitters, and then they'll turn slants into 60-yard touchdowns, whatever it may be. So I think that Jimmy's done a good job with that. Seeing defenses pre-snap and being able to get the ball out from a quick game perspective. From a pocket movement perspective, I think post knee injury, that Super Bowl year, he was pretty good with it.
Real quick, just to follow up on that, elaborate what you mean, because I think a lot of people, when they hear pocket movement, I think a lot of people think of like Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, and how they move. But I do think that Jimmy Garoppolo, for the most part, is able to kind of manipulate the pocket and the rush a little bit. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit more on that?
Like, you look at guys like, Russell Wilson and Kyler and even Josh and Mahomes and those dudes that can drop back and take off when they need. And that's not necessarily what I mean, like you said, from a twitchy perspective within the pocket. You look at Tom Brady. You don't think of him as a guy that is this fast twitch, like get out of the pocket type of dude. But within that phone booth per se that we're in when we're in the pocket as quarterbacks, his movement is very efficient. He's able to slide if he gets A gap or B gap pressure. He can slide out of the way and push up in the pocket quickly, and then the ball's out. I think that Jimmy's been able to do that pretty well for the most part. Now, if he gets too much time back there where he does make a movement and then he's still hanging around back there, I think that is a struggle of his sometimes, because then he's maybe looking all over. He might lose his first or second progression. Then he's trying to work through it again. And then sometimes some hell breaks loose. But for the most part, when he's moving within the pocket, sliding left or right or making that push up in the pocket, I think he does well, and he's able to get the ball out quickly. So he's a little bit more twitchy than I think people would give him credit for when he does make some of those pocket movements. And then you got people saying Jimmy Jukes or whatever it used to be, and I think it's in relation to some of that stuff. It's not his ability to take off and go run by any means, because that's not necessarily a strength of his.
Right, real quick, I wanted to shout out Coach Abasi, man. Coach Eddie out here, MJC alumni. All right, that's what, I went to MJC. Greg also went to MJC. He was kind of like, I was like the star, and he was like the background dancer a little bit. So I'm talking about Greg here. So what's up, Eddie? I hope all is well. And continue, fighting the whole thing. I see you doing well with cancer and everything, man. We're all proud of you, and keep fighting, big dog. You give us all motivation, man. So I appreciate you. Yeah. So Greg, now one weakness I think that people kind of talk about right away with Jimmy Garoppolo is obviously the deep ball. And he did something really weird the other day in practice where I've been wanting Jimmy to throw the ball downfield, and he threw this interception. All right. And I got two takes on it, and I want to get your kind of take on why maybe this happens. So one, I was excited just to hear that he threw the ball downfield, because that's something that he just doesn't do. The 49ers with him in 2019 threw the ball down past 20 yards, the least amount in the NFL, in the entire NFL, by far. All right. So it's man, is it just, and we talked about it a little bit, but is it just a lack of confidence, or what is it? Well, in practice, he threw downfield, so I was excited about that. It got picked off, but he did something weird. I don't know if he wasn't confident with it, and everybody said that the receiver had his guy beat on the post, but he double clutched or pumped and then threw it. Can that timing or lack of kind of throw off his ability to be able to get the ball downfield, especially if he doesn't have a big arm?
Yeah, I think especially with the double clutch stuff, you see it a lot where guys at the younger level that don't necessarily have a huge arm yet will double clutch a throw, whether they think it's there, they go for it, it's not there, and then they decide to make that throw anyways, or in this case it might be open, so maybe he was looking elsewhere and thought he was going to throw it to one receiver and then goes to the next progression because he might have seen him out of the peripheral, the corner of his eye, whatever it may be, and decides to make that throw. But as you double clutch and you go here, if you're not in sequence, a lot of times without a big arm, now the big arm guys can do it out of sequence. They can put their feet in the ground, with their shoulders square and just turn and throw the ball 60 yards. But somebody who doesn't necessarily have a big arm where you really need to have your feet underneath you, that could change things if you're out of sequence where you pump and then you can't get that good drive step off and throw the ball deep. It is going to hinder the throwing abilities for somebody with a mediocre arm, I guess, from a deep ball perspective.
Man, so Garoppolo, he has thrown so far in practice, last time I checked, 2 interceptions already, and it seems like he continues to get picked off by linebackers. What makes it so difficult for a quarterback? Maybe is it something pre-snap or post-snap that limits his ability to maybe see linebackers in the passing windows? Because, obviously he threw the pick 6 just the other day to Fred Warner. It seemed like something even going back to 2019 where he's always missing the linebackers and kind of throwing it right at them. Why is something like that happening?
I think it goes back to the quick game stuff. A lot of the things that the Niners do is quick game related. So things are really congested from the linebackers. The Niners will do things where they'll walk up and drop off, or maybe there's zone blitz or man blitzes, whatever that may be. So sometimes as quarterbacks, we get fooled, right? And so if the defense is throwing things at you that you necessarily or haven't necessarily seen as of yet, the defense is trying out new plays. The offense is trying out new plays. Sometimes in practice, those plays are scripted versus a certain defense, as you know, right? So if we have a play call from an offense perspective, sometimes on the play sheet, just as we're working in practice, there might be a defensive play call that we already know that what we're throwing against, right? So from that, it makes it a little bit easier, obviously, because what you're throwing against. Well, if that defensive play call isn't scripted and you're not watching film necessarily on the Niners defense and they're implementing new things as well as the offense, sometimes you're going to get screwed up. Sometimes you're going to get beat. You might get a different look from linebackers, as we're talking about these coverages these days where they're disguising and doing all these exotic coverages these days where dudes are dropping off or they're not in the same spot you thought they might be on a particular coverage. You're going to end up getting fooled. Now, I think that it could be a thing where it was predetermined where he wanted to throw the ball and he got fooled and he still went with it, or he didn't see the linebacker in the lane when you got, 6'5", 6'6", guards and tackles in front of you. Obviously, Jimmy's not a shorter guy, but sometimes they will get lost in that mix where somebody might shift over and you go throw the slant route or you go throw an under route and somebody happens to be in that lane, but you didn't necessarily see him in time. So that's the one thing that he'll make these throws in games like slant routes. He'll throw second window slants or first window slants right by a defender. And you're like, it's like one of those hold your breath moments, but it still gets there. And I think that's what Jimmy has been good. But as you do so and you start throwing a ball across the middle a little bit more, getting it to guys like Debo and Ayuk, I mean, you are playing with fire at some point or another because linebackers are good, obviously, in the NFL where they are going to make the plays, especially Fred Warner, who's arguably the best linebacker in the NFL. He's not stupid. He's reading eyes, and he's been able to prove his worth not just against Jimmy Garoppolo, but against the best in the game in what he's doing. So I think it could be a thing of, maybe it was a predetermined, that was his first read, and that's where he wanted to go with it, and he got fooled on the defensive or from the defensive coverage. So I haven't seen the red zone stuff that you were talking about as far as the interception, so I'm curious to see where those picks were, if they were outside, probably inside. So if you have video of that, send it to me. I'd love to check those out. I'm sure they're on Twitter at some point or another.
Yeah, we'll see if they show them. I think the 49ers are trying to – they're not trying to put out too much bad stuff on Jimmy Garoppolo, whether they're trying to kind of save his value for a potential trade maybe or not hype up, Trey Lance as much, all right? But I do want to get to Trey Lance because it's a very unique situation with the 49ers, what they have at quarterback right now. You do have Jimmy Garoppolo, who Kyle Shanahan has faith in enough to feel like, hey, this guy can win games. And we saw it in 2019. We've really seen it in a majority of Garoppolo starts. Big issue for him. Obviously, he's a little limited with a lot of his ability, but the injuries have been a big problem as well. You draft a quarterback number 3 overall, and he has this like elite skill set, like a modern day skill set of what you're looking for from a quarterback. And some of the things that are coming out are, well, he's throwing the ball downfield, and he's throwing a couple good ones, throwing a fluttery one as well that ended up still being completed. He's driving the ball pretty well, but there have been some misses. There also have been some throws behind receivers. What do you think it'd take to maybe get on the same page with the receivers, or why did something like that happen in general? Because he's still kind of young in his time with the 49ers. I believe today's only like his 9th practice or 10th practice or something like that as a 49er.
I think that it's probably just a confidence thing within the playbook. Obviously, we know he can throw the ball downfield, and he's done it well. He's got a huge arm. I think that, a lot of people made a big deal about the throw the other day. He threw a post route. I believe it was a post route, and it fluttered on him a little bit, and it was slightly underthrown. It was still caught, but it was slightly underthrown. And I think that it's a timing thing. The more he gets familiar with the receivers and the speed of those receivers, it's going to help him. We talked about it last week with trying to be too perfect on some of those deep balls. It's, with the speed of the guys in the NFL now compared to college, there's a little bit of a shift. But when you're trying to throw those deep balls like he did the other day, especially in practice, it's not one of those things where he wants to just air it out 70 yards and just hope that the guy can run it down and get it. You're trying to make completions happen. You're trying to be good with it. He wants to show that he has the ability to make those completions. So I think that he just got a little bit touchy on it. I'm not going to say, oh, Trey Lance doesn't have the arm talent. Trust me, Trey Lance has the arm talent to throw the ball over the top. If he wanted to throw the damn thing 70 yards, he would have done it the other day. I don't think that it's something that needs to be, magnified and just, oh, he can't make it happen. We're right back in square one. It was one throw that came out a little bit wobbly, and I think he was just trying to be too touchy with it, and I wouldn't look any further than that. But, as he gets more comfortable with the playbook, I think that he is going to be out there fully confident in his abilities, because when you first get started as a quarterback, right, and there's the playbook, you're trying to understand the reads, you're trying to understand the protections, you're trying to make sure that guys are aligned right. You got coaches stand behind, right, and everybody's making sure that you're doing things right. And then you got to check out the defense. Obviously, we're scanning the defense pre-snap and then post-snap as well. So there's a lot of different things that are going through his head right now, probably, and there's a ton of things that are thrown at quarterbacks right off the bat. So, I think looking forward to weeks 3 and 4 into the season, we'll see a completely different Trey Lance than you've probably seen the last, 9 practices with the 49ers.
All right. So what are some of your experiences with like picking up an offense? Like, how long did it take you to really get comfortable with maybe not just what, you were doing as far as, on the offensive side of the ball, what your coach wanted you to do, and maybe seeing, the field like your coach, but also like understanding what the defense is doing and with their different drops and maybe their disguising and things like that. How long does it take to kind of get a little comfortable with things like that to where you can at least be efficient?
It's, you go through it in the offseason. They'll go through it and they'll look at it on their tablets or actual playbook or whatever it may be. And you can only do that so much before you actually get onto the field and do it, right, on routes on air or Teamo, where and that's usually how it starts. So it's routes on air first, right, and then we'll go into like a 7-on-7 look, and they're doing the full concept, and then you throw the lineman into it, which again, that's a whole another step where you're talking about protections and the full cadence and taking snaps, etc. Then you throw the defense into it, and every step along the way just gets a little bit harder, right? So it's easy to get to know, okay, there's a certain play, we got a post dig on this side, and you got the under on the side, whatever it may be, a drive concept, whatever that may be. And it's easy to do it on air. Then you throw the lineman in there, and it's a little bit more that's going on. And then you throw the defense in there, and there's a lot more going on. So it's usually a couple of weeks of actually taking those live reps versus just drawing it up on a whiteboard and showing that you actually know how the concept works and where your reads may be. Because once you get the defense out there, right, there's college defenses, and then there's NFL defenses that are way more exotic. And guys are in certain spots where this defender, you might have a nickel on the backside and the safety's playing middle, and then they roll and he's sprinting out. So it looks like a man look, but it's not a man look. Like, there's a lot of different things that he's going to have to rep and see over and over again, I think, before he becomes fully confident within everything that's thrown at him with the playbook. And I don't think that I can't anticipate Shanahan throwing everything at him, obviously, right off the bat. They're going to get the playbook. Like, here's the playbook. Here you go. Here's day 1 installed through day 10, 14, whatever the hell it may be. But once he's in there, it's not like he's just going to pull something out of the back of the playbook and say, here you go, try and run this play and see what works. You're going to build that confidence with him first and then give him a little bit more.
So with Trey Lance and, Kyle Shanahan came out and said there's not a QB competition. He really believes that, Garoppolo is a starting quarterback, at least heading into training camp. What do you think it'd take for Trey Lance to be able to make this more of a competition? I know you've been in kind of situations like that, seeing like a guy that's projected to be a starter, maybe coming in, and what can Trey Lance do to get Kyle Shanahan just start thinking about, like, you know what, maybe we need to start getting Trey Lance some reps with the ones.
Right. I think that, you talked about the interceptions in the red zone today. Capitalizing off mistakes that somebody else might make. If somebody else goes and makes a mistake in front of Jimmy, goes and makes a mistake, throws a pick, wrong read, whatever it may be, and then Trey Lance goes and runs a similar play or the same play and capitalizes on it, I think that obviously him showing that he's not making the same mistakes that somebody else might be making or eliminating the mistakes as a whole, But just proving that he is a leader, that he is confident, that he can lead that football team. And again, it's going to take a few games. Obviously, it's going to take some preseason stuff, but then it's going to take a few games from there to actually show that he can do it against the ones, not just a practice thing. But I think if Jimmy goes in there and does what he's supposed to do, and the Niners are winning games, it's going to be hard right off the bat for Trey Lance to get in there. But if there's some screw-ups or Jimmy goes down, whatever it may be, and Lance can step in there and operate that offense very similar or better, then it becomes a thing where we're going to be probably talking about Trey Lance just taking over as the guy because he has a little bit more ability from an athletic perspective, arm talent perspective. And then maybe the Twitter world will get into start talking about the trades and that whole deal as well.
Now, I do have this one last question on that, and then we'll kind of get into Josh Allen. But with Jimmy Garoppolo being the veteran, but he's a little bit limited with his skill set, but that at least he can run the offense and he can do it efficiently when he's on, right? As opposed to a rookie quarterback that's going to have to take his lumps, but has a different skill set to where you can kind of game plan around it. Which way would you go if you were the coach? The guy with the big upside and skill set to where it's like we can do certain things to kind of simplify the game for him, or a quarterback that can be efficient but also limits what you want to do a little bit?
It's tough. I think you got to it's going to be one of those equal opportunity things that you really have to look at. But it's tough because we've seen Jimmy get the Niners to the Super Bowl. We've seen or help get the Niners to the Super Bowl, right? It's obviously the run game was very efficient. The defense was very efficient that year, but it's going to be who gets it done at the end of the day, whether it's a mechanical. I mean, all the mechanics, like the throwing mechanics, go out the window. Who can run the ball better, that goes out. It's like at the end of the day, who can get it done in the game, and that's who's going to end up playing. Doesn't matter. I think if you got a guy that can run a 4.6 40 and then he can do the zone read stuff and take off, but you got Jimmy on the other, and I'm just throwing that out there as an example, or you got somebody who's a little bit more vanilla and just operates the offense, but gets it done. At the end of the day, I think whoever can actually show that they're the ones that are operating it, winning, moving the ball, scoring in the red zone, eliminating turnovers, whoever that may be is going to be the guy that plays, no matter what the skill set may be.
Now, you've worked a lot with Josh Allen, I mean, from when he was a kid, and now, I mean, you guys are best buds, and you've seen his progression. You've been there. You guys talk. You guys play Call of Duty together. You guys talk about game plans and what he's seeing, and you've seen the process of Josh Allen being more of just like, hey, this big physical freak coming out of Wyoming and having, some up and down moments early on to an MVP candidate in year 3. All right, let's talk a little bit about maybe some of your conversations. And I mean, you don't have to be specific, but just what he was thinking in year 1 and maybe how year 1 and year 2, how he was seeing the field and some things he felt like he had to improve on.
Yeah, no, we've talked about it as far as it goes back to the playbook. Like that's the biggest thing. And we've talked about it a little bit before, but when you're going into year 1 in the NFL, like there's so much stuff that's thrown at you. You get this thick playbook. I have one of the grads of Tyler Brace from the Kansas City Chiefs, and I have the Bears ones, and they're huge playbooks. And so versus a college one that would be, yes, there's pretty extensive information within a college playbook, but nowhere near what an NFL playbook would be. So it's what was thrown at him year 1 compared to what was thrown at him year 2 and 3 is completely different, right? They want him to be able to go in and build that confidence. If you throw everything at a kid that's right out of college and you expect them to just turn the whole program, or the whole franchise around right off the bat, I think it's a recipe for failure, honestly. But giving him a little bits and pieces, building that confidence, showing him, okay, yeah, you can do this at this level, right? You can function at this level with this amount of plays within the playbook and these protections. So, like, you get veteran offensive linemen that might help out with protections, that might make those calls the first year or 2, right? You go back to Peyton Manning, he talked about learning protections and reading coverages and seeing guys blitzing. He played with a guy named Marshall Faulk, as most people would know. And he talked about Marshall Faulk being one of the smartest players he ever played with, but helped him at an early stage in his career with reading defenses and picking up protections and helping him set protections, et cetera. So having guys like that in the backfield, Josh played with Frank Gore. He said Frank Gore is probably his favorite teammate he's ever played with, or one of his favorite teammates he's ever played with. And he said that he comes off as a quiet guy, but he's so bright from a football perspective in the backfield. Like, those guys next to you are going to help build some confidence, right? Like, having somebody like that at practice or somebody like that in the huddle is going to help you versus maybe just spread out with some super talented receivers and a decent or mediocre O-line, and everybody's kind of looking at you like you're the savior, but at the same time, like, they're fighting for their own jobs as well. Then you got some veterans that might look at you like, hey, we got you. Like, it's okay if you screw up the protection. I'll make sure we call it right. Or those guys are going to mic the mic, or they're going to set the mic or the protection off the mic or the wheel or whatever it may be. And those dudes up front are going to be the ones that take care of it at first. And then as things go on, they'll give the quarterback a little bit more or a little bit more of the leash to do those things. But him getting a certain amount of playbook year one and then year two, and then like last year we talked about it, okay, now he's going to get like that full playbook where it's everything's thrown at you. Like you are expected now year three, like it's your show. You're going to be the guy. And I think that people talked about Josh's mechanics at an early age, or his footwork and his inaccuracies and things like that, and wanted him to be a particular way. And I think what we saw last year with Josh was he just played how he's played his whole life up to that point. Like, he played how he did in high school, played how he did in junior college, played how he did in Wyoming. He was just this loose kid out there having fun playing football, and he played his best football last year. So I think that not trying to be somebody that you aren't, just going out there and just being loose and being that guy, that's what helped Josh. And I think that if we can see that from a Trey Lance perspective, it's going to be huge, instead of just trying to be this tight mechanic or mechanically sound quarterback and somebody who's not. Those things are in the back of your head, like, oh, my stroke's going to be too long, so I'm not going to be able to get the ball out in time, or my front step, or this and that. Like, those things got to go out the window. And when you start being yourself, like Josh was last year, obviously you saw how the game changed for him.
Yeah, I mean, well, we saw it in the 49er game where it was like, I don't want to say backyard football, but I mean, he just picked the 49ers apart every which way, whether it was quick game, whether it was him buying time, eluding rushers, throwing the ball downfield. It was like everything they did, it was just wrong. Like, it's like he just had the answer to the test and was just out there just playing, having fun, just moving around, throwing balls on the run. I think when we look at Trey Lance, he has a similar skill set. Now, again, like I said early on, Josh Allen, I think his arm is bigger. He probably has the biggest arm in the NFL, right? I think Josh Allen is just bigger. He's like 6'5", 240 pounds. Yep. And that's not to say Trey Lance can't get bigger. I mean, he was 20, barely 21 years old. So, at 6'4", 225 pounds or whatever. I mean, by the time, another year goes by, he can easily be at 240. But Josh Allen was just like this physical freak, and you look at how he plays and his skill set, and then you look at Trey Lance and you compare it, and you're like, man, I can see some of the similarities. A lot of people talk about, the accuracy and things like that, and where maybe, Trey Lance can improve. And I think what you're saying is Trey Lance almost has to block out the noise a little bit with people maybe overcorrecting things, and almost just like, hey, let's get you comfortable with the playbook. Let's just get you comfortable with what you're seeing. Let's get you on page with the offensive line and calling protection and stuff. But it sounds like he did a lot of that in college as well. But we need you to be you, play free. Obviously, we want you to execute, and we want you to be able to do it at a high level and teach you how to do that. But you're saying at the end of the day, you got to just go play, and you can't be thinking about all these other things that people are saying you need to be doing this or that, where it needs to look like this the way you throw the ball. He just has to let it rip.
Right.
Am I right?
Yeah, I think so. And that's, it came up on Twitter a while ago when people first saw Trey Lance throw the ball, or Niner fans, it's like, oh, his motion's too long, his stroke is too long, or it looks funky, or it looks like there's a hitch within his motion. And people wanted to be critical of it. And it doesn't look conventional. So people associate with, okay, this is how quick Jimmy releases. He hits all the points from like a mechanical standpoint. He hits all the points. The one thing, and I have a ball right here, like the one reason he doesn't look, or like it might look funky to other people, is like most people hold the ball right here, right? And when they go back, they'll push it straight back or they'll get it straight back and they get like this equal opposite look here, okay? Or some people will get that arm straight across the chest and kind of stabilize the spine, keep the front shoulder closed a little bit longer. The only thing that Trey Lance does different is he'll hold the ball here in the carriage, right? So this is what we call the ball carriage. He'll hold the ball here in the carriage, and then from here, instead of going straight back, what he does, he'll lift it up. So instead of setting the wrist, so we'll keep the elbow and the wrist tied together, or the elbow and the point of the ball tied together. And I have a Cardinals ball. Shout out to my guy Keyshawn Johnson here. So I got the Cardinals ball. But what he'll do, instead of just going from here straight back, he'll set it here. So he'll lift it up in the carriage, and then he'll go straight back. And all this is doing from here to lifting it up and going straight back, that's throwing people off. That's
so he has a wasted movement that people aren't used to really seeing.
Yeah, probably wasted if you would. It's a timing mechanism. Some people pat the ball right and you go pat the ball back and then go straight back with it. That's a timing mechanism. All Trey Lance does is he'll get ready to throw it and he'll lift it up for a second and then he'll go away. But he'll set the wrist and the point of the ball, instead of keeping it here, he'll just do this. And now the wrist is already set and he'll take it back straight there. So instead of going from here to here, all he does is go from here to here. And he lifts the ball up slightly when he does it, and it's just a timing mechanism. But so, who doesn't understand mechanics, they might say, oh, he throws funky. It's not funky. All he's doing is just setting the ball up and then going straight back with it.
I hear a lot of people say he has like a elongated release or something like that, but I remember you telling me if it's quick, it doesn't matter if it's long. It's the long, slow releases, right? Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit for everybody?
It's like I said, so if think about it, it looks longer. So from here, this path from here to here is shorter than this path from here to here, right? He's getting to the same spot from here to here, or from here to here. He's getting to the same spot, but because he lifts it up, it'll get a little bit longer. But he has quick hands. He's got a quick release. He's firing the ball. It's not this thing where it's dropping it way down and then it's a slow release like the Tim Tebow type of thing from back in the day. Or
that's what somebody put in the comments too. He said like a Tim Tebow wind up.
Tim Tebow's wind up. Tim Tebow was here and then he was way down, and his arm speed was a little bit slower. Trey Lance just lifts it. All he does is set the ball sooner. He'll lift it, set the ball sooner, and then it makes it look longer. But at the same time, he's in sequence. Like when his front foot's on the ground, that ball's kind of right here around that flat L position. And he fires the hips. He's got quick hands. It's not that it just looks a little bit longer, appears to be a little bit longer, because he'll lift it up in the carriage and set the ball sooner. But again, it goes back to, like, there's a fine line. Like I know Quincy and Sean have obviously worked with him. If that's how somebody throws the ball naturally and they've done it to this point and it's got him to the NFL, why would we try and make a change now at this point? If he's thrown well his whole life, why? And maybe at some point or another, he won't do this anymore, right? He'll just change it from here to here. But he's gotten this far doing that. So why would a quarterback coach try and harp on those things as a kid's going into rookie camp? Right, or going into his first training camp? Like, he throws the ball fine. When the ball comes out of his hand, it's fine. Just some people are so critical of how it gets there, right? So from here to here, they don't like how it gets from here to here. That's it.
Right.
And that's what makes it look weird to some people, or it looks a little bit hitchy, if you would. But overall, the efficiencies are there. I mean, he throws the ball really well. His timing seems to be very solid within his sequencing. He fires the hips well. Sometimes he gets a little bit long with his front stride, but a lot of quarterbacks do that. It's a super common thing. So what he's doing is not super out of the ordinary. And I don't think it's something that needs to be worked on every day in practice, because he's done well up to this point. So to overcoach it, I think everybody would be a little bit crazy to overcoach the way he holds the ball in the carriage and how he lifts it up and goes back down with it.
You know, I was listening to KBR, and it was Steve Young, and he was talking about just that, right? Where everybody thinks that you're supposed to throw a certain way. And he even thought that. He said, you know, he saw Dan Marino throw the ball, and he's like, that's how it's supposed to look. Like, that's how it's supposed to look. That's how my release is supposed to be. So he started trying to change who he was, with his mechanics and his throwing motion. And he wanted his throwing motion to look like Dan Marino's because he assumed like, well, this is the guy throwing for 50 touchdowns. This is the guy that's throwing the ball all around. Like he has a pure throwing motion. That's what it's supposed to look like. But he quickly learned that, nah, man, like you be you and just learn on perfecting that. Now I do the same thing with defensive backs, right? There are some people that are natural T-steppers, right? And there are some people that are natural bicycle steps. But you'll see this big discussion amongst defensive back coaches that are like, oh no, it's T-step, like that. I'm team T-step, or something like, oh no, you get that T-step out of here, road runner. You're gonna lock your hip, blah blah. And my thing is, I got out of my T-step as fast as anyone ever. Like I'd put my T-step and me exploding out of that break up against any break. And I did that using the T-step. So I'm not going to put down a bicycle or anything else that anybody else does. I think is how can we get you to be as efficient as possible within the natural motion of what it is that you currently have.
Right.
Now, if you're doing something from a standpoint of, I think a lot of people with their back pedal stuff, it's a lot of times you'll see guys T-step wrong, right? Like they'll T-step and open up their shoulders and their hips and lean back, then try to go for it. Like, no, we can't do that. So I can teach you the proper way to T-step. Is that something similar with a quarterback where, hey, we can have you still do some of the things that you naturally do, but now let's work on kind of maybe not bringing it back as far, or are there some certain things you can do to work on that?
Yeah, there is, but at the same time, like you said, like you've done the T-steps well, right? So it got you up to that point. You got you to the NFL, okay? And there's more efficient ways maybe to do it, or there's maybe a more efficient way within the T-step to do it. So like there is more efficient ways within the throwing motion to get the ball out quicker. Like Jimmy has a quick release. He doesn't lift the ball up and do that. But Trey Lance, what Trey Lance makes up for those things is because he does lift the ball up, where he goes here and then goes back. Maybe it takes longer here, but he'll make up for it with the velocity that he has on the football. So in essence, it's probably going to get there at the same time as somebody who might have a quick release or a little bit quicker release or even faster. And I've always told people that. Like I had a longer baseball release. Like I would go a little bit lower, obviously, and I still do go a little bit lower. Even like I don't teach it that way to go low, but I just naturally from throwing like that for so long, I do go a little bit lower. But I always told people like, hey, I'll make up for it with my arm talent and the ability to actually throw the ball and get it out quickly with my hands. So, and the velocity on the football thereafter. So I think you got to take what people do well. And this is for guys that are at his level or college or late high school, like college and NFL guys, you got to take what they do well and run with it and like refine the little things along the way. It can't just be this whole restructure, because then you're going to screw somebody up. They've thrown like that for 10 plus, 12 plus years, 13, whatever it may be, however many years they've played football. And if thrown like that, you got to take what they do well and try and maximize the efficiency from there instead of completely rebuilding and reshaping mechanics.
Right. And that reminds me of, I don't see anybody talking about anything that Patrick Mahomes does, right? From his, and nothing he does is like conventional. I feel like from throwing the ball. I mean, he drops it below his waist. He got one hand out here. He flicks it, sidearm. There's all these things. And it's like nobody ever says anything about that because it works.
Because it works, right? And that's the thing. If it wasn't working, then we would be having this discussion of like, okay, if Patrick Mahomes just does this and this and it looks too wild, or he doesn't ever set his feet like this. Like Aaron Rodgers, watch Aaron Rodgers throw. Like he throws off platform a lot. He throws off platform sometimes when he doesn't even have to, where he can't he doesn't put his feet underneath him, or he'll do like that little pop step.
Yeah, I've seen him with like both feet off the ground.
Yeah, he'll do that pop step or throw both feet off the ground. But when you look at his upper half, like he'll get his shoulder closed. And when he releases it, he'll keep this off arm a little bit more closed off, and it keeps the front shoulder closed longer, and he creates torque with the upper half. Like some of those things you can teach, obviously, and we can rep it over and over. But some of the things Aaron Rodgers does at the end of the day, or Mahomes or Josh or whatever it may be, it's like things you can't teach. It's like those are the natural abilities that just like you're watching the game with your friends and you look at your buddies like, what the hell did he just do? Like, oh my God, I can't believe he just made that throw. It worked. But if you want to get the couch quarterbacks or the quarterback coaches that want to actually criticize it, well, this is what he could have done better. Like, no. Like, if you won a Super Bowl throwing the ball from down here and then it was just loopy motion, why would I sit here and try and change that motion? Like, in my opinion, like people did that with Tim Tebow. Some people love him. Some people hate him. I don't know why people hate him, but his throwing motion worked. Like in college, it was a little bit slower, right? And yes, he was playing with elite athletes. It was down low, way down here, and then he'd come around. But the dude threw like 88 touchdowns, 16 interceptions in the SEC.
Right.
And then his whole focus through draft prep was changing his mechanics. It's like, yeah, let's try and refine some of those things, but like I think the whole changing of his mechanics overall eventually screwed him up, and it made him worse than he was in college. And people were so critical of it. But it's like, dude, he got that far throwing the way he did. Let's just see what it looks like in the NFL. Why do we need to go change it? That's just my opinion. Like it wasn't the most efficient or the quickest throwing release, but the dude got it done. Like that's what happened. We talked about who's going to play on the field with Jimmy G and Trey Lance. Like at the end of the day, it's the dude that gets it done. Kyle Shanahan doesn't care if Jimmy Garoppolo can get the ball from here to here quicker, but he's throwing interceptions, or he can't move the ball down the field. He can't score in the red zone. Like if a guy can freaking drop back and kick the damn ball down the field better than he can throw it, well, then so be it. That's the person that's going to play. It's whoever's winning games and moving the ball at the end of the day. That's what it's going to be. All the other stuff is, I think, is just it's fun stuff to talk about from, the quarterback coaching world or the analyst world or whatever it may be. But if a dude gets it done, that stuff is all fluff anyways.
Right. All right, man. I appreciate all that. So real quick, if you guys have any questions for Greg, we'll answer those. Anything about, quarterbacks, 49ers quarterbacks, the situation, any thoughts that y'all might have, we got Greg on here for a couple more minutes to answer those. I appreciate everybody that's in here in the chat, everybody kind of contributing to the show. That's what's up. See, Trey Lance just threw his first interception on the goal line drill to a linebacker, Jonas Griffin. That's not good.
Trade him now. He's gone. Send him home.
Right. Yeah, I think he threw one at him earlier in training camp too. So maybe he's missing those linebackers as well. They're kind of tricking him a little bit. And I would say, and not to like stick up for Trey Lance or anything like that, but for him or Jimmy Garoppolo, you'd rather them make those mistakes now, right? And try to figure out why exactly it happened, as opposed to preseason or the actual NFL games where now it's happening. It's like, dang, it's actually going to hurt the team, right?
Right. And honestly, like this is going to be the topic, as we know, for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Like he threw a pick in practice. He threw a pick. Like we're going to go back and forth. And people got to understand too, like you played defense. You didn't pick me off much. I know you like to talk about, but I don't think you ever picked me off, Croc. So if you did,
I know you. Are you on here lying?
I am definitely not lying. I know you got torched plenty of times. You got torched probably weekly, right?
No. I got you. I got you. Matter of fact, my first practice at MJC, they almost kicked me off the team and sent me back to Stockton because I picked your pass off on the slant first practice and threw the ball in the air and told you don't throw at me. And Coach Stivers got mad because I showed up his quarterback and he was like, you can take that back to Stockton. We don't do that here at MJC. Man, you better stop playing with me, man.
But you know damn well that I would have been right back at you. I guarantee I probably threw it right back at you right after that.
I got you on the high-low on the smash concept under the lights. I remember.
That's the one you go back to because you baited me. You play a little bit low, right? You baited me.
Hey, I always tell people it's like just setting a mousetrap out there, you know. So I know if I know I got cover too. I know I got flats. I know they're gonna try to high low me if my guy does a stop route. So what am I gonna do? I'm not gonna play in between. That's what I try to tell guys. Play in between. Make them check it down. No, I'm gonna show Greg the picture he wants to see. He wants to see me down so he can throw that corner route. So I'm going to show him down, but I'm going to anticipate the corner route, and I got your ass.
No, you did. And here's the thing. And what I tell people, too, is there's two things to this. One, like playing against guys like you, corners like you, right? That prepared me for the games. Like you would rather me throw a pick to your ass in practice, right?
Yeah.
Than me go do it against somebody that we're playing against on a Saturday, correct?
Correct.
So you guys, right, you and Brett, guys that play corner with us, on our team made me better. You know, that was the thing. Or at some point or another, like you guys were all conference dudes. We had all conference receivers, all conference line. Like we all made each other better. And I think that's the thing that people got to realize. It's like the defense is going to win sometimes.
Right.
There's going to be interceptions thrown. Like if they're not getting interceptions, if they're not making plays, we should be a little bit more concerned about the defense then, right? Like
right.
If they're not getting interceptions, if they're not making damn plays on the field, if they're getting torched by Jimmy G and Trey Lance, which everybody wants to see because that's the topic of conversation, and the defense has been solid. But let's say we go through training camp and there's no picks thrown. Like at some point or another, we're going to be sitting here talking about what's going on with the defense. Like, are they even going to make these damn stops? So like the defensive dudes are in the NFL for a reason as well. Like they've earned it. They're professional athletes. So they are going to make plays. They are going to set up the quarterbacks. They're going to fool dudes. It's a cat and mouse game. You know, so that's what people got to understand too. Is like you're not going to win every single time on offense, and you're not going to win every single time on defense. But if we can eliminate or we can score more than they obviously do, then that's how you win the game. But I think that it's going to be a thing where it's everybody's going to criticize every little interception, but we also got to understand like this is football, and the dudes on the other side of the ball are damn good, and we want them to be damn good, right? As 49er fans, you'd want those dudes to get some interceptions here and there. Because also the quarterback is going to learn from that mistake as well. So it's a learning thing. I'd rather it happen here than go happen week 1 or 2, once the season starts.
That's right, man. All right. Yep. Here we go. Brandon Vincent. He says, irons sharpens iron. And that's correct. So we're going to hop off here, man. I appreciate everybody for coming in here, sliding in here. Obviously, we appreciate Greg for his time and his analysis and his expertise. Again, if you guys aren't following Greg, tell them where they can follow you on Twitter, man. Because Greg posts some stuff sometimes, and he'll jump in there every once in a while and talk about some quarterbacks. He tries not to get too touchy on it because he don't want to lose clients and stuff. But
I need to get a little bit more active on the Twitter world. I honestly for a long time, like I hopped off of Twitter. I wasn't even on it, and then once I started really getting into the quarterback training again, people were like, you need to get on Twitter. That's where all the recruiting is, and I was out of it for like 4 or 5 years. So I basically just got back onto it a couple years ago, and I don't tweet out a bunch of stuff. I'm more so on Instagram, but it's just Greg_Panelli. Obviously, you've tagged me there on Twitter, so I'll start getting into it a little bit more. Obviously, as we're doing the quarterback talks, and I'll start doing some stuff on a weekly basis once the season starts. We'll get into maybe breaking down some other guys as well, and then some of the Niners guys. And but it's Greg_Panelli on Twitter, and then Instagram is where I do a lot of stuff as well, and it's just Panelli Passing Academy on Instagram.
All right, make sure y'all follow my guys, man, and make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button right now. Hit that like button right now. Again, this show is partnered up with Underdog Fantasy, so download the Underdog Fantasy app or go to underdogfantasy.com. Type in promo code Crocky, and when you deposit a minimum of $10, you'll get an additional $25, and I get paid from it. All right, so go right now. Hit the Underdog Fantasy, all that good stuff. I appreciate you guys for coming in here, and I think that's going to do it for me and Greg, man. I appreciate y'all. Peace out.
Intercepted. It is picked off by Eric Crocker. Over midfield. He'll run it all the way into the end zone. Touchdown.
Croc Talk TV podcast. Peace.